Hello, everybody, and welcome to another installment of my... I haven't even come up with a name for this yet, but basically my Hero Pack review, where we will be looking at our hero of the episode. We will be looking at the Obligation and the Nemesis kit, and just sort of getting some impressions of where these heroes are, what their strong points are, what their weak points are, and talk about what my favorite card of their kit is, which can be wildly divergent and is kind of up to interpretation. Today we are looking at Illyana Rasputin, sister of Colossus, who first appeared in Giant Size X-Men in 1975, almost getting hit by a tractor. She is a very powerful hero in our game that we love, and I guess right off the bat, I said this at the end of the last installment, and I'll say it here right up front. If you're enjoying this kind of content, one, like, subscribe, all that jazz, whatever people on YouTube say. But, a rising tide raises all ships. So if you like looking at the encounter set, go listen to Critical Encounters. If you like card analysis, go listen to The Winning Hand. I'm just trying to do my part, and I'm just trying to have some fun with this. I'm not trying to step on anyone's toes. And go out there, have a great time, and go watch other content creators, because I'm not the only person doing this. But either way, we've got Illyana Rasputin, a 3 recovery, 6 hand size, 10 hit points, mutant mystic with the interrupt. When you change to hero form, choose a spell in your discard pile and put it on top of your deck. Limit once per phase. So I misunderstood this ability when I first saw it. I thought it was when you change to this form, recover spell. No. If you mulligan away a spell in your discard pile and you change to hero form, you get to just put that right on top of your deck, which is going to be super relevant in just a moment. And here we are in that moment. So Illyana changes over to her hero form, becomes Magik with 1 thwart, 2 attack, 2 defense, 5 hand size, 10 hit points. Mystic X-Men. Play with the top card of your deck face up. Once per phase, you may play the top card of your deck as if it were in your hand, reducing its cost by 1. I talked about this in the Jubilee unboxing, and it's relevant here too. And I guess and this mainly comes up in the context of something like Star-Lord, where his cost reduction is great. But as you look at cards that are in her deck or in her kit, we shouldn't assume that every single one of these cards is going to have that reduced cost, because only one of them every turn can. And I think that's just healthy to kind of to remember. You don't want to sit there and go as long as it's on top of my deck, this is going to be costing 1 instead of 2. That's not always true. Overall, I think her stats leave a little bit to imagine. They could be better, but at the same time, I feel like that ability to look at the top card and to play it is so important. It's going to be important to some of the cards in her kit, but I feel like, and time will tell as we go through everything, but I feel like the X-Men line had a lot of don't worry about your stats. These stats don't matter. They are just sort of part of the body, and the text box is what's important. And I think that's probably important to every hero in this game. But I feel like the X-Men were really just do not worry about our stats. Unless you're Phoenix, then you worry about that 3 in thwart, because it'll become a 3 in attack, and that's really important. But overall, my gut reaction says that the stats have all kind of been a little lacking, and maybe I'll prove myself wrong in the coming weeks. As of right now, Magik is really looking for some of her cards in her kit to help augment her. In fact, let's just jump right into that. So let's look at how we're going to improve her stats. We've got Magik's Crown, a 2-cost upgrade item, so you can go get it with Shopping Spree. Magik gains Steady. While the top card of your deck has a Genius or Wild Resource icon, Magik gets +1 thwart. So that brings her up to 2 thwart. Then we've got Soulsword, a 1-cost upgrade. Weapon restricted. Magik's basic attacks gain piercing. While the top card of your deck is a Strength or Wild Resource, she gets +1 attack. And lastly, Mystical Armor, a 1-cost upgrade armor. Magik gains Retaliate 1. While the top card of your deck is a Energy Resource or Wild Resource icon, you get +1 defense. So let's see if I can get these all sort of nice and view. No, not really. Okay. So we're not going to worry about having Magik on there. So I like these. I think that if you can play these two for free, all power to you. Magik being able to play with the top of her deck, maybe not as easily as Domino, but still being able to care about the top of her deck. And if you happen to see a resource icon that you don't like, you can just play it and hope for something better. All well and good. I think changing from her alter ego, putting a spell that has the type you need to make it through the hero attack before you play that card, also really good. I'm sort of coming down a little critically on Magik. At the end of the day, I think that overall, she's a very powerful hero. And I feel like these cards are really strong, but you had to find them first. And that's been my biggest hang up. In the half dozen to dozen games I've played with Magik, she's always been strong. She's always pulled her weight. But these have always been something that were critical. And the games where I didn't have them, it was far worse. I think Piercing is great because you can break through toughs. Retaliate is great because heroes don't get retaliate that often. So when you can have it, you take it. Steady should not be understated because I'm already paying 1 to give Steady to like Spider and Thor and Hulk through Unshakable. Is that the card? Unshakable? Yeah, Unshakable. I already want to give that to heroes when I can. So the fact that Magik can gain thwart power and be harder to status lock is great. These are great cards. They are things that I want to dig for, though. I will prioritize those over other cards. Let's look at Colossus, who wonderful ally. If you jumping ahead a little bit, wonderful ally. So 3-cost ally, 2 thwart, 2 attack, 3 hit points, toughness. Interrupt: when an enemy attacks you, play Colossus from your hand, paying his resource cost, and declare him as a defender without exhausting him. So the fact that he can come in and block the tractor for you, and he burns the tough, but he then is not exhausted. I love Colossus. I think he is a great ally. And I wish I realized that the point of him being a great ally is that he's identity specific, and that the fact that he can't just show up in other people's decks is kind of the reason why he's so good. But oh my gosh, I love this ally. It may not be my favorite card in the kit, but I love this card just for being a card to just get into play and to block and to be that extra point of block. I love the times when I've played him off the top of my deck. It's like, oh, from the deck comes in Colossus, and he blocks, and everything is great. He can be a huge boon for you. Next up, we've got 3 copies of Stepping Disc. 1-cost event, superpower, hero action. Ready your hero. Choose a magic card in your discard pile, not named Stepping Disc, and put it on top of your deck. This can be so great for... 1, just being that re-ready. If you have defended and you had like the perfect card with her armor to defend, and now you want to ready up on your turn and you want to give yourself that attack you were looking for, great card. Love this card. Not a spell, which can be a little unfortunate, although this is more thematic of Magik's actual ability, because Magik is only a mystic because she went to Limbo and learned about magic. Her actual innate superpower is the stepping discs. So love this card. It's on curve with what I would expect for a card that readies your hero. Some heroes can get away with doing it for free. Magik can do it for 1. And in some cases, Magik can do it for 0. And we've got her thwarting card, Exorcism. 2-cost event, spell, thwart. Hero action, thwart. Remove 4 threat from a scheme. If the top card of your deck is a mental or wild resource icon, confuse the enemy. I will freely admit I have not deck built enough so that the resource ability on this has come into play too often, but the times when it has, you're effectively removing so much more than just 4 threat. This is not the first card I think about when I think about Magik, but it is. I think it's a pretty sweet thwarting card, and it's thematic with what she wants to do. They've got Soul Strike, 2 copies. 2-cost event, spell, attack, hero action attack. Deal 4 damage to an enemy. If the top card is a strength or wild resource, stun the enemy. I get use out of this a lot more, which must just be my deck building style. Is I end up with cards that just happen to have more physical resources than they do mental resources. I also love thematically that what they're looking for and what they have is different. I really appreciate that. But overall, this is below the curve in terms of the damage output. But at the same time, this can cost 1. I think that's the thing that we need to keep in mind. I realize that I said don't always assume that these are going to cost less. But when they do cost less, 1 resource for 4 and 1 resource for 4, that's pretty stellar in my eyes. And then we've got Magic Barrier, a 1-cost event defense spell. Actually, that's something I want to keep an eye out for as we go through all of this, because the defense trait and cards that defend are so sourced into the defense aspect that I don't know how often we actually see that on identity specific cards. I don't think you see it outside of defense at all, but cards that actually can be that defense, so that if you are in the defense aspect and you want to activate Flow Like Water or Electrostatic Armor, this is a card in your kit that will do that for you. Either way, 1-cost event, defense spell, hero interrupt, defense. When an enemy initiates an attack, prevent 3 damage from this attack. If the top card of your deck is an energy or wild resource icon, deal 3 damage to the attacking enemy. I don't think about this card a lot, but just reading through it, this might be my favorite card of her kit, because it defends and it redirects 3 damage to the enemy that attacked you. That for 1 or for 0, but okay, let's just take this at its highest cost. For 1, that's pretty good for me. I like that. And we move into the last few cards. We've got Limbo. Oh gosh, okay, this might be my favorite card. I feel like I'm so conflicted. Okay, Limbo, 1-cost support, dimension, response. After the enemy phase begins, exhaust Limbo, swap a card from your hand with the top card of your deck. So this is how she sets up like Domino. Or action, swap a card from your hand with the top card of your deck. So this is her being able to do a really good Domino impression. And I'm going to speak highly of Domino because Domino is one of my favorite heroes. I did not take this card seriously at first, but once I started taking it seriously, and the ability for it to set up the top card of your deck consistently, it should not be overlooked. If you're not prioritizing this card, you should try prioritizing it a little bit more and just see how it works out for you. I love this card. Oh God, I'm so conflicted because I just sang the praises of Magical Barrier, which I do like, but Limbo is so stellar. And then last card is Scrying, my favorite spell to put on the top of my deck on the first turn. 0-cost event, spell, action, and it's important, action. It's not a hero action, it's not an alter ego action, it's whenever you feel like it. Actually, okay, so that might be the thing. This is my favorite thing to do on the first turn. How about Illyana, Scrying, flip over Illyana, put Scrying on top of my deck. That is, you can make for a very strong first turn just doing that. You can probably also waste a lot of time doing that. But Scrying, 0-cost event spell, action, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, draw 1, discard 1, put 1 back on top of your deck. So this is telling time from Magic, kind of. There probably is a card that exactly matches this from Magic. Cool card. Is kind of like a meat and potatoes card. It's not gonna win the game, but oh my gosh, can it make the turns you're about to have pretty stellar. And it replaces itself. Let's not overlook that. It replaces itself. You pay 0 to draw a card. The best card of your top 3, you make the top card of your deck the best of those 3, and you get rid of a card that you don't care about. Or that maybe, you want to put back on top. With this ability. Moving on to our obligation. Flavor win right out the bat. Darkchild, obligation. Give it to the Illyana Rasputin player. You may flip to your alter ego form, choose to either exhaust Illyana and remove Darkchild from the game, or deal 1 damage to each character you control, discard this card. It's very thematic. Great obligation. So often you just exhaust your alter ego, and that's just kind of unfortunate. But the times when you can't because you defended and now you are in alter ego form, but you're exhausted, now you're dealing damage to everybody, and you were probably defending for a reason. Or I guess the other option is you're playing against something and the boost ability exhausted your characters. The moments when you have to choose the bottom one are you're probably not having a good time. And I like that because Darkchild is Illyana's alter ego kind of thing, her like dark side manifesting, and I think this is a great representation of that. Moving on to the Nemesis kit, we have Belasco, who absolutely flavor to win. Go Fantasy Flight, you knocked it out of the park. This one was probably easy, but you picked the right one. Belasco, minion, 1 scheme, 1 attack, villainous, 6 health, elite, and Limbo traded. Forced response. After Belasco activates against you, discard the top 3 cards of your deck. If Ruler of Limbo is in play, attach those cards to it face down. So what is Ruler of Limbo? Ruler of Limbo is a side scheme with 3 threat on it. Threat cannot be removed from the scheme while Belasco is in play. Has a what's called not acceleration, amplify icon. When revealed, the Illyana Rasputin player finds Limbo and attaches it here face down. When the scheme is defeated, put Limbo into play under its owner's control. A rules clarification that I don't have right off the top of my head. So when this goes away, I wish this said, no, but that wouldn't work. That would be too wild. I believe the cards that are attached to this when this goes away just go to your discard pile. I don't think they just stay out of the game for the entire rest of the game. I could be wrong. Don't nail me to that one. But overall, these two as a kind of like symbiotic relationship, I think are great. The fact that Shadows of the Past is going to pull this into play, so when he does activate, he's just going to keep taking cards from you, and you no longer have Limbo, and that's one of her best cards. Yeah, just knocked out of the park. No notes. Then we have Witchfire, who is a more recent character, and honestly, I do not have a knowledge of who this character necessarily is. I know that she is Limbo traded. I know that she's a character from Limbo, but as she is from more modern, or they are more modern, don't necessarily. She's probably someone who's fighting over Limbo. Thus, Limbo is my birthright, as her quote. But a 1 scheme, 3 attack, 4 health minion with quick strike. After Witchfire attacks and defeats an ally, place 1 threat on Ruler of Limbo. Otherwise, place 1 threat on the main scheme. So she has the ability to wreck house, and in doing so, she is going to be putting threat in places that are probably inconvenient. And overall, cool card. Maybe not high on the actual like threat scale, but cool, interesting design, and I like it. Oh, let's do this one. Get all the minions out of the way. So we got Sim. Minion, 5 health, 2 scheme, 2 attack, Limbo traded, guard, keyword. When revealed, if Rule of Limbo is in play, put 2 threat on it. Otherwise, put 2 threat on the main scheme. These two just are great. You want to get Rule of Limbo out of play. These two can really just mess up your timing. When people say that Marvel Champions is just a math game, I mean, that's a fair assessment. Sometimes you just math out the game. Cards like this can really throw off your math, and suddenly you lose an entire turn. Or 2 turns. And lastly, Battle for Limbo, a treachery. When revealed, each Limbo minion in play activates against the player it's engaged with. If no Limbo minions activated this way, this card gains Surge. Surge is obviously the balancing point. It's got the boost icon to put 2 threat onto Ruler of Limbo if it's in play, which thankfully that's all it does. All the more reason to just want to get the Limbo minions off the field, because they love attacking, they love activating. This can just, once again, throw off your math. And actually, I think that's something that I'm not necessarily sure is super in the zeitgeist here, but I think this is a good example of cards that really mess with the math, that can really throw things off. Sometimes it's through the villain healing, like 4 hit points. Sometimes it's through threat just being thrown onto side schemes or main schemes. All of that can be super important to keep in mind. Just like when we talked about Pyro with Iceman, that indirect damage is something that you need to account for once Pyro is in play. Once Belasco has come into play and you have to worry about everything with Rule of Limbo, like threat is something that you can't just brush off. It is not a known quantity anymore. It could wildly diverge really quickly. Oh, also, this is Scotty Young art. Love that. Overall, like I said, Magik is a very strong hero. She's not necessarily my play style, but I can see that she is good, and I understand why people enjoy playing her. Overall, I think Limbo is the really safe answer to say is my favorite card. That said, Magic Barrier, in just talking about it, which I think is probably the important part about this series, is really sitting down and looking at these cards and not just like discarding them as resources. Magic Barrier kind of like rose up in my stock a little bit here. I think Limbo is the undisputed best card, but my favorite card might be Magic Barrier. What are your thoughts on Magik? What are your favorite cards for Magik? Tell me in the comments. See you next time when we will be looking at Bishop, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks.